Hi, and welcome to the Dr. G Show. This is episode 161, and we're continuing our discussion on gluten. So last week, if you remember, we were talking about kind of what is gluten, and then we started talking a little bit about celiac. And then this time, hey Jenny, we're going to talk about kind of non-celiac gluten sensitivity and some of the pitfalls and hurdles that we have to overcome, and then looking at some solutions that we can do for how to basically like live once you know how bad this is. How do you do that? So I'm Dr. Garrett, as you know, and I've been practicing functional lifestyle medicine for quite a while. So we have patients from all around the world that come in, and whatever they have going on, we figure out how to get rid of it, but usually it's help them stop causing it, which is always the cheapest, easiest solution. And we've been doing the show for 5 years. I think it's
really
4 or 5 years. And you were in some of the first episodes.
I was in some of the first ones.
And so I'm a DC, and then I have a couple, several postdoctoral diplomates in clinical nutrition, functional medicine, all that, and sit on several boards. So I love this stuff. And then I have a clinic called Family Health and Wellness, or Wellspring Center for Optimal Health and Wellness. And then we have Sherry, who we always had Dr. G and the boss, but the boss got a boyfriend, and so now she didn't care.
So I'm not the boss.
So we have a new boss. All right, so we have Sherry Clark as our guest today, and she was on here last week. And tell us a little bit about you.
In my former life, I was a teacher. I have a degree in education. In my newer life, I went back to school and got a nursing degree, and worked as a nurse for a while, long enough to know that it wasn't my passion, conventional medicine. So I've been with Dr. Garrett. I've known him for 8 or 9 years now.
Yeah.
And we are very similar in our views and practices. Lifestyle medicine's where it's at.
Just not height.
Well, so.
But yeah, especially lifestyle medicine.
Lifestyle medicine. I am also a certified health coach, and I have my own practice. We do a lot the same things, really, and it's great to have the camaraderie, and can bounce ideas off of each other. We've done that for a long time. My specialties are probably because of my own background. I am very interested in autoimmune diseases and how to help people navigate how to live with one, and we're actually going to talk about that tonight.
Yeah.
So.
Well, great. I love having you on, and you're always welcome to be here, of course, because you're awesome.
Being here. I sometimes have this stuff going on, but yeah.
And Sherry has a really unique vantage point to all this too, because I learned all this stuff, and Sherry's been applying all this stuff for years. So Sherry has like lots of years of figuring out all these things as she raised her kids. So.
Yeah, I got
lots of practical kind of information.
Long before I knew about functional medicine, I was interested because I had kids that had stuff going wrong, and immune system stuff. And we did the best we could. We sought out the most functional clinics we could find, but I wish I'd known then what I know now.
Yeah, don't we all?
Yep.
Lauren said good evening.
Perry?
Yeah. Perry,
Delana?
and then Delana, yeah. So, welcome you guys. Feel free to post questions. Sometimes this is kind of, especially when we talk about gluten, and sometimes is wheat gluten, is gluten wheat, and so we talked a little bit about that stuff. But if you have questions, just feel free to jump in. This is we do this for you guys as kind of a public service, and so if you have questions throughout this whole thing, feel free to post those. And everybody else kind of has the same questions anyways, so just like high school.
There are no dumb questions, and if we haven't made something clear, or we said it in a confusing manner, we want to clarify that.
That's usually what I do. So.
I try to help them.
All right, so we talked about what is gluten. We talked about what changed. So what changed and suddenly the grains that people ate forever and didn't have problems, suddenly they had all these problems. And then we talked about celiac specifically as a disease and the testing for that. And then we left off talking about gluten sensitivity. So you have two big categories. You have a, what is it, 2% we said? Or more?
Yeah, 2-ish.
Yeah. So 2% out of the population that has problems with this are true, actual 100% celiac patients. And we talked about that testing. But pretty much 98% of everybody else are non-celiac gluten sensitive people. And that becomes a big problem because it's not this profound, like immediate reaction all the time. A lot of these people are going to have what are called delayed reactions. And that becomes very, very frustrating, especially if you've ever tried to do food logs or try to pay attention. But like I say, with all the patients, everything that you have that's chronic is something you're eating, drinking, breathing, rubbing on your skin, or how you stress. And so it's fine if you say, well, I'm just not going to eat bread. But we have all these other places that we hide this gluten in. And then those non-celiac gluten sensitivity, all the other people then end up with all these, non-celiac eczema, psoriasis, and Crohn's and ulcerative colitis, and rosacea, and rashes, and all these kind of things. So,
And wouldn't you say in our practice we've seen that?
oh yeah, all the
if
time.
People, sometimes people come to us already that they are gluten-free. Or
Yeah.
gluten-free.
Yeah.
And they still are coming here because they have problems.
Yeah.
And I would venture to say that going gluten-free, based on research, you have to do more than that. 80% of people that do that they don't resolve their symptoms.
Yeah.
So when we're going to talk about why.
Yeah, and the testing for gluten sensitivity is very different. So you guys have probably watched several of my shows that have where we talk about what is called IgG food sensitivity testing, right? So that's called immunoglobulin gamma. You have 5 immunoglobulins that regulate kind of inflammatory responses in the body or immune reactions. And those immunoglobulins, and they're globulins because they're globes, so these little round proteins that regulate your immune system. There's IgE, which is immunoglobulin epsilon, and that's the one that whenever you talk about allergies, like if you want to talk to your doctor about allergies, that's like a celiac kind of thing. That's not a sensitivity issue. Oh, I know. But I did the
It's an immediate reaction, like when the kids, can't breathe because they.
Oh wait, I said the opposite, didn't I?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Like peanuts.
IgE, that's immediate, that's emergency, that's
Boom.
the rash when you eat a strawberry, or,
Right.
That's why you can't have peanuts at school anymore because some of the kids have a severe allergy to peanuts. That's the IgE.
Yeah. So that one you really don't need testing for because that's the one, if it happens every single time to the exact same food and it's always immediate, you don't need to waste your time and money on those things, on those testings. And they have a high false positivity because they have just really over-the-top reactions. So you'll have what's called dermographia where, you can take those people and write something on their arm and like a couple minutes later you can read it. So that's just high histamine overall because they're just chronically inflamed. Now, the other ones, there's IgA and IgG, which are more of like chronic conditions. M and D are more for like infections, so acute kind of infections. But with IgG, immunoglobulin gamma, that's the one that's probably the most important test that we've ever done in our clinic that is really life-changing. In the beginning, is life-changing where they cry because they're just like, oh my God, I can't eat these things. And then eventually it's life-changing because they're like, oh, I don't have Crohn's anymore, or I don't have eczema anymore, or, I don't have migraines all the day, all the time anymore. So those kind of things are wonderful. But that testing is not the same as you would talk about with your doctor as you would think like IgE reactions. So that's always a caveat with that. It doesn't translate. We all learn it in college and grad school, but outside of that, nobody's really doing it except for a handful of doctors that test the delayed stuff. So when it comes to non-celiac gluten sensitive, this becomes a real problem because, or I don't know, it's a good thing. It's a problem, but it's a really good thing So when you look at the grains that are tested, it's just a simple blood test, and there's several of these shows that we've done where it's your T cells dysregulation leads to molecular mimicry, and it's just overly complicated, and then you just do the test, and that's easy. Hey, Elizabeth. And so once it creates this reaction, then every time you eat that food, it has some type of systemic histamine reaction for that. So it's very different from different people. But when it comes to grains, if you look at like the grains that are or let's say gluten grains that most people don't think about. So we always think about wheat is gluten, but what else is gluten?
Rye, barley, and, well, some of the relatives of wheat, like spelt and einkorn.
Yeah.
The ancient grains, they do have gluten in them. And we also, often it's said oats also, although oats in its pure form does not contain gliadin. It is often contaminated in the field or in the processing with gliadin. So unless you buy certified gluten-free oats, you may as well assume that you're eating gluten when you eat oats.
Right. Yeah, and almost everybody, if they're just like, I could have glutens, I don't have problems with it, and they have, they can have oats, and they don't have any problem with it, but they're still having some kind of residual issues, it's always the oats.
Because these are all grasses, and their proteins are very similar. They may just have very minor variations in the protein.
And this is what that looks like. Hopefully you guys can see that.
Up.
So on here you can see things like, so Sherry said that even if barley wasn't a problem, it's still gluten. If bran, that's gluten.
He means if the test doesn't show a reaction to barley or rye.
Yeah. And then rye is gluten. So then these other ones though, so then what people do is they switch to gluten-free, and then they still end up having problems. And so they have these either cross reactions or then the other molecular mimic actions. So like amaranth is tested, that's a gluten-free flour, gluten-free grass from South America. It's used in lots of stuff. It's actually really good just to eat.
It does have a stronger flavor though than some of the others.
Yeah. And then arrowroot, very few people are allergic to arrowroot, and that's a wonderful one. Same like cassava.
Because it's not a grain, it's a root.
That's right. What the hell is it on there?
Those are starches.
Well, because they're starches. Okay. And then buckwheat, so...
Sounds like wheat.
Einkorn is wheat, not corn, and buckwheat is not wheat. What is buckwheat? A grass?
Buckwheat's another grass.
A grass,
right?
okay.
So.
And buckwheat's a very common one for substituting, so then if somebody's gluten sensitive and then they still have issues, then it's nice to know if you have that buckwheat sensitivity. Of course, corn is just allergenic for the most part, and it's very inflammatory because it's high omega-6 and it's genetically modified, so that's a whole mess.
If you do ever use corn, be sure you're getting GMO-free.
That's right.
Organic. If it's organic, it is GMO-free.
Yeah. Hey, Gina. Yeah, and then of course quinoa, but like same with wheat, like, we said, the triticale? Triticale, yeah. But that's, again, there's all these different strains, and then we bastardize this one. Quinoa is the same thing. Quinoa, there's 1,800 species. We eat 3 in the U.S., and really we only eat 1. But it's often something people are sensitive to. Same thing with rice. Rice is a very common cross-reactive one. Rice is one that, like, if people doing gluten-free, like, you can get brown rice, gluten-free spaghetti and noodles and that kind of stuff. But if you're still having a problem, a lot of times it's that rice, which is tested on here.
People, they eat a lot of rice typically when they go gluten-free, and if you haven't healed the intestinal permeability that causes these sensitivities, you're just going to become sensitive to whatever you're eating a lot of.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is the problem. And are we ready to talk about parts per billion? Parts per million?
Oh, yeah.
So like if you have gluten-free bread, it's going to have rice flour in it. It's going to have other flours in it. It may have sorghum. It may have any number of things. It has a lot of things in it. But it also, well, unless you buy flatbread, it's got yeast in it, which is real cross-reactive to gluten. So these things are all just really problematic. And in addition to that, the law says that you can label it gluten-free if it has only 20 parts per million or less, at least in the United States. It varies country to country. I think Scandinavia is maybe 10. But, so that's for one serving. So how much is a serving, are you eating, how many pieces of toast are you eating, how many, and if you eat something gluten-free bread in the morning for breakfast, and then you have something gluten-free sandwich for lunch, and then maybe you have pasta for supper, you maybe have had 6 servings of a gluten-free product during the day, and so you've gone way over your 20 parts per million, and so you're getting 20 parts per million of gluten.
Yeah.
And if you're super sensitive, you maybe can't even tolerate those 20 parts.
That's kind of like how people are like, well, there's just a little benzene in this product, and that's not enough to hurt you. But every product you eat through the day is benzene, and so it's just like, yeah. So I didn't even think about that with the accumulation of that throughout the day.
The real problem with this is, and we'll talk maybe more about this in a little bit, is that when a person, my example person, that's eating 6 servings of gluten-free product a day, they've never really made the transition from the standard American diet to eating a nutrient-dense diet that's more vegetable-based. They're still grain-based, starch-based,
Right.
and if they have any issues with blood sugar, those things still spike blood sugar like sugar.
Yeah.
So we really... Why people cry is because they know they're going to have to make really big changes.
Yes.
And sometimes they resist that. And I'm going to eat my gluten-free bread. I'm going to eat my gluten-free pasta. But eventually we usually are able to convince dense foods that they're missing out on when they eat starches.
Yeah, especially when they start feeling really, really good. All right, so Gina has a question.
What does Gina say?
She says,
Yep, my knees.
we need bigger print.
Yes, we do.
I got new glasses, but the pupils are off just a little bit. There we go.
Okay. She's had inflammation the past couple of days because, I don't know. What did it say?
Say meth.
No,
Okay.
of the gluten, what's it say? Drama llama?
Drama llama? What the hell's a drama llama? Yeah. So, that's funny. We're gonna have to get bigger font.
We
Have to get an
the
iPad.
problem is we can't see
Yeah,
us.
we got way back there. It's not because we're getting older.
No.
That's crazy talk.
No.
It's these damn screens.
You get your iPad up there.
Now we're
Good.
getting old. Technology when I was a kid. So there's another thing too. So that's an easy thing. So we just test again. You test for celiac. Really, you don't test for celiac. You just stop eating wheat.
Well, I want to make another comment. Many times, you can't tell if you have celiac or you have non-celiac gluten sensitivity because the symptoms are just the same.
Yeah.
All celiacs don't have gut stuff. Some do. Some gluten sensitivity people have terrible bloating, gas, diarrhea, all that stuff. Some don't. Some people have migraines. Some people have skin stuff. And it's just the same. You can have that if you have celiac disease, but you can also have that if you have non-celiac gluten sensitivity. I don't know if any of you know of Tom O'Brien, but he's an authority in celiac and he is of the opinion, because of research that he's done and others have done, that there's a continuum from non-celiac gluten sensitivity to becoming celiac, and in his and others' opinion, it's about 5 to 10 years.
I'll validate that opinion.
Yep. So.
Because that's not. Yeah, that's.
I mean, and
What
we
you'd
see that with
expect
the
anyways,
IgG
yeah.
stuff, but
Yeah.
it's not just, I don't have the genes for celiac disease, so I'll never get it. It's really not like that.
Yeah. All right. Rosacea, yeah. Rosacea is a big one too for that. So it's just histamine. So it could be 20, and this is why I love what I do, because it's so easy. You have if you have 20 different people with 20 different conditions, and it's all caused by this overproduction of histamines, depending on H1, H2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You have to do all the tests, and you just say, what the hell's causing it, right? So the first thing you always do is tell people to start eating wheat and dairy. That's the easiest thing. But then it gets a little complicated because of the, is it celiac, is it sensitivity, all that, but just get rid of it. Hey, there's Jennifer. So there's also this, so we have celiac, there's gold standard tests for those. Then we have IgG sensitivity testing for gluten and even wheat and other grains. And then we also have negative IgG, negative celiac, but still reactive. So, this is, again, because we're dealing, we always think of like food, like in defense of food, Michael Pollan writes about how we basically just kind of like extrapolate or reduced food to the just a couple ingredients, right? We think of like an orange is vitamin C, not thousands of nutrients, and a banana is vitamin or potassium, not thousands of other things, right? So when we think of like bread, we said there's 3 main proteins that are in wheat, but there's all these other things that are in there. And one of the things that's one of the most reactive is the amylase trypsin in there, which is part of the albumin protein. And of course, gliadin. We didn't talk about gliadin, but gliadin and gluten and glucose.
Wheat germ agglutinin.
Yeah.
Super bad. Crosses the blood-brain barrier. People have a problem with that often if they've got food-related depression, anxiety, headaches,
brain fog.
fog.
So the amylase trypsin is an albumin protein, and it still can cause a sensitivity, even if it's negative. So it's the kind of frustrating thing. Like patients come in, they get tested, and it's just like, hey, I can have wheat.
No, probably not.
No, don't do it. Don't do it. It's not the same thing anymore.
So question.
Yes.
There are digestive enzymes that help break down amylase. Are those helpful?
Well, amylase is an enzyme.
Well, I know,
that
but
breaks
I mean,
down sugar. But amylase
if
trypsin,
you don't have enough of the amylase to break down the things
oh,
in the wheat.
we should. I mean, we should have enough to break down amylase by itself, because that's just the amylose, which is just the sugar. So that's what our mouth does, like from the beginning, and then of course the pancreas does that. Liver doesn't do much of that, but our stomach does a tiny little bit of that. But yeah, we should be able to break that down. But if there's a deficiency of that, then those people are going to be the most susceptible. And there's some medications, like we have, if you think about like undigested food in your stool, right? In this office we have lots of poop talk. Lots of poop talk. So your small intestine is 22 feet, your large intestine is 9 feet. No, 6 feet? 6 feet. And what is 22 plus 6? Damn it, I was raised in Texas.
28.
Where's the calculator?
28.
So 28 feet, almost 30 feet of digestion and absorption, and people still have food that comes out undigested. Not just corn, which you just rinse off and use again, but like lettuce and stuff. So it went through 22 feet and it couldn't digest? That's crazy. So there are medications that people take, especially like antibiotics, that will mess up your pancreas, your liver, or your parotid gland's ability to actually produce the enzymes that they're supposed to produce. And we had a few of those patients. Usually we don't really worry too much about testing for stuff. We just say, okay, well, take a bunch of enzymes that help with that digestion, kind of cook your food a little bit more, steam more, and then it should start working, and it usually works. It always works, so, hadn't had to go too far on that.
But it's also really important to chew your food so that those enzymes in your mouth get a real chance to get a head start on that. It's been said that your stomach has no teeth, so you need to do the work.
Stoma dentatum.
Well,
Wouldn't
not
that be great?
usually.
If your stomach had like teeth and it just went like that?
No, I don't.
That'd be great. I could swallow a fish whole like a
Snake.
like a snake. Yeah. And then my stomach would just like that. That'd be great.
But we don't, so you gotta chew.
Yeah. So you might have, again, a third kind of thing or fourth thing where we're at, of where you might have a disruption of enzymes that break that down, and then again, you're going to be more susceptible than the other person for that, but the solution's still the same. Stop causing it. And then, of course, fructans, which are usually really, really good. They're wonderful. But fructans are not digestible for humans. So these are proteins that are in bread and other things that you don't digest. And the way it should work is the sugars from fruits and grains bind with the fructans, and they create oligofructosaccharides. And then those become food for your bacteria. So that's 750 to 1,000 strains of bacteria that live in you and on you, and you don't digest all that sugar and fiber, and then your gut bacteria does that, and then it metabolizes that, and then makes B vitamins, and it makes butyrate, and that reverses 10,000 different gene mutations per cell per day, which is a bunch, and then all the B vitamins make you healthier and happier and more energetic. Say it, Jenny?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Jenny? What?
What's Kelly saying?
She just gave it away.
Somebody made the comment that you should chew or act like you're chewing your juice because it helps digest it. And I think that's right. There's been some research that shows the movement of the mouth actually.
Chew your fresh juices?
Yep, I've read research on that. Yep.
Yeah. So, I'm gonna push that phone. So then there's that issue, which again you can do, and so you can have SIBO problems with this. So if you don't have the bacteria there, you don't have the ability to digest it. Most people should be eating almost a diet of all fruits and vegetables and flavoring with meat. So then they have tons of enzymes that are produced all the time. But the average American eats one fruit or vegetable. And so we don't produce a lot of enzymes because we don't need a lot of enzymes. And then we eat a bunch of bread, and then we don't have the enzymes, and then it's already passed. So like that first 18 inches, right, that's when you're going to get the most breakdown and digestion of the whole, or absorption of the whole small intestine. So if you are amped up with all these enzymes here, and in your stomach, and in your pancreas, and in your gallbladder, and used to having a pretty standard diet, then you're not going to kick up those enzymes as well as someone else, and then you're going to end up with some kind of side effect because of that. So,
another thing that comes to mind with digestive problems is that people often have low stomach acid. Different subject, but it affects digestion and the ability of the body to make those enzymes if our stomach acid's too low.
A little hypochlorhydria.
That's that.
So,
and also, if you eat a lot of starches, breads and things, you're preferring the more troublemaking bacteria to thrive, and you're preventing your friendly ones from thriving.
yeah, and if you the same kind of thing. If you overproduce the enzymes, the fiber for the bacteria, and you have a dysbiosis or like SIBO, where it's overgrown and this one's prevailing, and then that one ends up being the one that produces too much gas. So then we eat a bunch of bread, we don't digest it, goes to that bacteria, and then that specific one overgrown and overproduces the gas, and then you have all this flatulence and bloating, all that stuff. So that's usually the easiest solution, is just, well, which one could it be? Well, we could do thousands of dollars of testing, or you could just stop eating the damn bread, right? So, also, a lot of that's like the overgrowth, the SIBO, it's just, 65% of all antibiotics are overprescribed because of viral infections. And that's not what you do for those. So they only disrupt the normal biosphere. And you have this, actually the guy that created the first software, he believes, and he went crazy or something. But Kaspersky, is that right? Kaspersky? The first internet antiviral software?
I don't know.
That dude went crazy. But anyways, he was funding some research down in Belize, where I went last summer. And it was about the auto-sensing of bacteria. And so all your bacteria kind of has an idea of what's growing, what's there, and so it basically controls its breeding based on all the other breeding around it, so that everything's in balance. And then you take an antibiotic and you wipe out only species of bacteria, only selective species of bacteria, and then it goes, oh, we can overgrow now, and they just keep growing and everything overgrows. So then it can be overgrowth of yeast or Clostridium difficile or H. pylori, which are all normal part of your biosphere in your gut. It's just when they're overgrown that's a problem. So
there are cases and situations where you need to take antibiotics to save your life, but if you go in with cold symptoms and your doctor gives you an antibiotic, he really should have some evidence that you need it before he prescribes it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would be wise to assume you have a virus.
My oldest daughter came home and she was like, from a friend's house, she's like, I got strep. Do you have that strep kit? Strep test kit? We need to go to the emergency or the immediate place and get antibiotics. I said, well, let's look at it. And so I looked and it was just like, yeah, that's not strep. And then she's like, how do you know? And I was like, well, kind of a doctor, I'm like, And so, 90% of the time that sore throat's viral. It's not a bacterial infection. And so I went all the way to Wichita, got my strep test kit, drove all the way back home, tested her, and there was one line, it's negative. I was just like, see? But most docs they give antibiotics for strep-like stuff because it makes the patient feel better, the parents feel better, but it disrupts all their gut, and then they have all these weird consequences from that. So we talked about a little bit about the FDA labeling. So even if it says gluten-free, it doesn't mean it's really gluten-free or gluten-zero.
Right.
It just means very, very minimal, less than 20. And how the hell do they figure that out? But sure, they have lots of
chemical testing,
ups and downs with that.
So I wonder how you eat gluten-zero.
Yeah.
You eat foods that are naturally gluten-free, such as fruits, vegetables,
Hey, do
nuts,
it.
seeds, berries, legumes,
And greens.
Yes. And fish and meat.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's right. And we'll talk about that in a minute. And the other thing that's crazy is a lot of medications have gluten in them.
That's bad. And supplements, honestly, too. Now I see more supplements being labeled gluten-free.
Ooh,
But
yeah, because maltodextrin,
you need
that's
to,
in lots of supplements.
if you're having problems, you're doing the best you can, but you're still having problems, you need to check your supplements don't have gluten.
Yeah, and there's MSG has 50 different ingredients or 50 different names, and sugar has 50 different names, and of course gluten's in all kinds of stuff that we typically don't think of. Hey, there's Heidi.
Hey, Heidi.
And then, you know who Heidi is?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. She was on Cooking After Dark with Dr. G.
You forget, I was there.
You were there? At the show?
Yes. He forgets a lot. It's the age.
Je ne sais pas. Okay. So my patient the other day is in a different country, and her kids they're speaking back and forth. She's speaking to me in English, but she's speaking back and forth to them in French. And so there's something about you need to go to the bathroom, and then it was like, you need to go take a shower, and I was just like, what's going on now? And then it turned out his brother locked him in a room, and then he had to go to the bathroom, and his brother wouldn't let him out, and then he pooped a little bit, and so then he had to go take a shower. So, but it was funny because she didn't know I spoke French. Oui, je parle français. Just a little bit. Alright, so avoiding gluten. So then what the hell do you do, right? So we always say, when in doubt, the cheapest option is to just get rid of all your wheat and all your gluten, and then all your dairy, and then see how things go for a couple weeks. So, when at Harvard, I think we talked about that, it was 1/50th of a slice of bread, a little crouton. It causes weeks of disformation of the villi in the small intestine. And then what's crazy is like gluten's so bad and wheat's so bad and the preservatives are so bad that like we literally have signs that tell people not to feed animals this stuff because it will kill them. But we eat it. And so my favorite story ever is I love going to the Wichita Mountains, which is not in Wichita, it's in Oklahoma. And it's just like flat and then these little mountains, which are awesome. But they have a little prairie dog village. And in the prairie dog village, you just park your car in and you can watch all these little prairie dogs running around and all that. And it's impressive unless you've been to Hutchinson, to the Lowe's, and they're right there too. So you can just do it there for free.
Lowe's.
Yeah, there's all these prairie dogs. They're everywhere. So, in the middle of the city, if you can call it a city. So, so this kid's eating a little sandwich, right? Lunch meat, cheese, kind of bread sandwich, right? And he starts taking pieces of the bread and he's like throwing it over the fence to the prairie dogs. And then his dad points at the sign and says, "Don't feed the prairie dogs your processed food because it'll impair their immune system and they will die." And so the dad's like, "No, no, no, no," and he points at the sign and the kid's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, Dad," and he keeps eating the sandwich. And I'm like losing my shit over here because I'm just like, dude, like he doesn't get it. Like literally, the dad's like, "Son, we care more about these prairie dogs than we do you." So,
Well, no, there's just a disconnect. They just assume that because it's food, it's okay to eat.
right. And so now you see these signs that, like in Germany, they have this sign with all these dead animals laying on each other, and it says, "Don't feed bread to the animals." And then by the rivers, it's like, don't feed ducks bread because it messes up their immune system. They get sick and they die. So we got to stop killing the environment, and then maybe our families. I mean, I don't know. Ducks are pretty important, but I also kind of like my kids, so maybe they shouldn't eat the stuff that harms the ducks. So that becomes a very big frustration of like, how do you like eat healthy without gluten? And in that book, the History of Eating, or Eating History, it talks about like sliced bread, which is just a synonymous part of our whole entire existence now as Americans. Betty White is older than sliced bread. Is she 100 yet?
I don't know. She's getting close.
She's old. I would date her. She is awesome. So, if you're watching Betty White, what's up, girl? So, that means we have not been eating sliced bread for very long. And really, the only thing that prompted us to eat so much sliced bread is because we eat a bunch of processed, crappy-ass meat that used to be ghetto food for the people that couldn't afford anything, right? So, like, you ate steak with a knife and fork, and when steak would go bad, they would grind it up and then put seasoning in there to mask, kind of what they do at the grocery store now. And they flavor it up so you couldn't taste that it was going bad, and then they would sell it to the poorest people, right? I ain't make from the ghetto, because I came from the ghetto, dog. Alright. You know that. Sort of thing.
I didn't know you back then. That's what you said.
Dr. G! Alright. Got my own ghetto son. My own gang son there. Which is funny, because I taught my daughter blood, And then, to me it's funny, because they didn't grow up in my neighborhood. I grew up in bad neighborhoods. But you learned all these things, and then, so, it's kind of funny to do that stuff with your hands, but she did it for a school picture, just out of instinct, and then she was like, "Oh, I'm going to get in trouble."
Yeah, it might not be a good idea to do that. Some other people might take it seriously.
Saltine cracker girl nerds getting in trouble for throwing gang signs. But ain't nobody going to know. It's Kansas.
That's the real gang.
Where were we talking about though? Gangs?
I think we were talking about.
Bad meat. Yeah. So then you had hot dogs. Nobody eats no damn hot dogs because they're gross. It's all just ground up body parts that nobody would eat, and then they boil that and then feed it to people that can't afford anything else. So Nathan's hot dogs, like in Coney Island, they had this great idea. They would give free hot dogs to doctors. Because back in those days, doctors were called residents because they were poor. They actually lived at the hospital. That's why they're called residents. And so then you saw doctors eating at the hot dog stand, and so then people were like, oh my God, the hot dogs must be okay. But nobody wants to eat you eat a sausage. You go to Germany, tell me I might be wrong, but you go to Germany and you get a big sausage link and they would cut it up and eat it with a fork, right? Back in the day? Yeah? Well, she knows. She's all over the world.
They usually put a roll around it.
Damn Germans.
Brötchen.
Brötchen. Yeah, but before the bread, what did they do? I bet they could.
When did they? Well, they eat wurst with a knife and fork as a food. I mean,
they'd be vorsking it, you know? So then it was easier to take sliced bread, wrap it around that little garbage meat and eat it, right? So then you could eat it on the go.
It was a World's Fair. I don't remember which one, Chicago or St. Louis?
1800s World Fair in Chicago.
Not 1800, 1900.
No, 1900s. I don't know where it was. So, Fannie Farmer Cookbook.
Well, it's easy, you know. In the Earl of Sandwich, he decided to put bread around his meat so he could play cards while he was having dinner.
See?
Yeah.
Yeah. So then you had deli meat. Now, deli meat, again, is take scrap meat, sprinkle tissue transglutaminase derived from pig's blood,
Which is gluten.
onto that garbage meat, squeeze it and compress it and refrigerate it for 2 to 4 hours, one solid piece of deli meat at the deli. Slice that bad boy up, all that glued together meat, and then you put it on bread because you don't want to touch it. But if you had a pork steak, you would use knife and fork. If you used a turkey breast, knife and fork. But if you use this thin sliced, gross, glued together meat with gluten in it, bread. So then that sense of like when people literally give up bread, well, what the hell am I going to do? Well, it's only been this amount of time that we've been using that, and you're eating garbage meat.
Yeah, we just
Stop eating garbage meat.
Gotten used to eating everything with bread. And,
Yeah. So get hamburgers without a bun.
Well, there's also the whole gluteomorphin thing.
But your glued together meat has gluten in there, which will mess you up.
Mm-hmm.
The hot dogs, they have gluten? I bet they have gluten. Do they have gluten? They probably have gluten. I don't know. Your fake meat has gluten in there too, because it's seitan, right? So that becomes a problem. So then the frustration becomes, what the hell am I going to eat, Dr. G or Sherry? What the hell am I going to eat? Right? How am I ever going to go out to eat?
Well, it's possible. It's challenging, but it's possible. A lot of places have gluten-free menus now, and
Jeff knows what's up.
that is helpful. But there again, major on the things that are not complicated.
Mm-hmm.
Major on single ingredient items, like if you are a meat eater, you eat your meat. Mind you, it's probably not the best quality if it's in a restaurant, but whatever.
But it's better. Yeah.
And sides, vegetable sides, or salads. But if you get things that are casseroles and gravies and all that stuff, you're going to have gluten because they're going to use the cheapest, easiest thing available, which is wheat flour.
There's DJ. He'll argue with us in a little bit because that kid argued, always calling shenanigans everything I said in this class. So,
well, somebody needs to keep you in line.
I know. So yeah, so then it becomes, well, just eat fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, berry, legumes, greens, and healthier meat. But if you go to a restaurant, don't worry about the complicated part. Just say what you want, right? I was a waiter forever. And if you don't know, waiters don't care. Now, I did. I loved you. I wanted to know everything about your order. But those other waiters, they don't care, right? So it's like, well, what kind of oil do you use? Look, what kind of oil do you want it to be, right? I can just cut to the chase now. Is that decaf? Do you want it to be decaf? Because I'm in the weeds, right? Not me, other waiters. So just say what you really want. Some people feel like, oh, I'm, frustrating the waiter, or, literally they think they're going to go ask the chef, and the chef's going to, figure, have a little meeting, and they'll figure out. They're not. Just say, look, I would like a chicken breast with olive oil, some salt and pepper, and some steamed broccoli. Or I would like a steak with no seasoning, just a little salt and pepper. Or I would like, just tell them what you actually want. They are a kitchen. They will make you what you want. If you're nice and you tell them allergies, they will make you what you want. If you go to somewhere like Hoo Ha, they will clear off the grill and scrub off a place and get different utensils just for you, right? You're not a burden. It's not selfish to have self-care. Advocate for yourself. Just say what you really actually want. I think Applebee's, you might have a harder time because all their stuff's
Applebee's is
kind of
impossible. I'm
packaged
sorry,
stuff.
do not go there. There is not one thing, including the broccoli on their menu, that does not give me a reaction.
Yeah, is that right?
That's right.
Yeah, it's all the extra flavor stuff they have to make people more addicted.
I think they soak their broccoli in MSG, I think. But anyway. Okay, so prepared foods are a problem.
They are.
They are a problem.
The
So
worst.
go with the easy stuff. Note too, he said steak with no grill seasoning, because the grill seasoning often is held together with wheat flour or in some way has gluten. I know I've run into that several times. And if you I don't know, sometimes they'll bring the bottle out to me. This is the stuff they sprinkle on it, and I'm like, well, they don't know the ingredients, whether they're wheat or not.
Yeah. So that's one of the biggest things is, don't be asking your waiter or staff, does this have gluten? They don't know what the hell it is.
They don't know.
Those doctors don't even know what the hell it is, right?
Even if they're looking at the ingredient list, they don't know if that's gluten or not. So,
I mean, who knows there's gluten in the glued together meat? Is crazy. Or gluten in turkey that's processed at a farm because they inject it in there to make the meat.
Now, if they have a gluten-free menu that is printed and
Noodles and Company,
yeah,
Tanya's Soup Kitchen, those kind of places.
They not Cabela's, Carrabba's.
They do? They have gluten free?
They do, and that's where I learned that you can't have the
grill seasoning.
Nice.
She's all highfalutin going to Carrabba's.
My kid takes me there. But Chinese food's always a problem.
Yes.
Unless you go somewhere that has a gluten-free menu, because they always use soy sauce, and soy sauce has wheat in it. And it didn't used to in the ancient days in China, but since they started growing wheat ferments better, and so all soy sauce has gluten, except tamari.
And your favorite?
Aminos.
Coconut aminos.
Coconut aminos. Those are my
and
favorite.
you can bring your own stuff.
I had them in my purse today.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not above taking my vegan ranch salad dressing neither, or whatever, for my potato. So that's what you got to do. Anytime you see maltodextrin, that also is a problem because you don't know if it's made out of corn or
genetically modified corn.
Genetically modified corn on the positive side, or wheat on the negative side. No, there's no positive side to maltodextrin. So that's not good. We mentioned soy sauce. Anytime you have marinades, you have no idea what's in them. If something's marinated, but it may likely have soy sauce in it. So unfortunately, that's not so good. They do have these little, you can buy boxes that have little packets of tamari. So if it's something you like, you can take those little packets with you in your purse if you're a woman. I don't know what you do if you're a guy.
Man purse?
Pockets, I don't know. Anything pre-packaged, bad news. We're trying to educate our people all the time, to cook. Dr. G's always posting yummy stuff on his Facebook that he cooks, not out of a package.
For me and my cats.
That's right. Wheat-free. Wheat-free does not mean gluten-free. I have a pet peeve. There is a certain place that should know better.
Say it.
We're not saying it.
You're going to say it?
Nope. That always advertises their wheat-free menu, but
it's a health food store, isn't it?
They add barley.
Oh, it is a health food store.
No, we're not saying
I'm
it.
not saying which one.
We're not saying it.
'Cause
they add barley or, buckwheat's fine. Barley or sometimes rye.
Buckwheat.
Anyway, so that is not okay.
So it should be gluten.
But it's actually, it should say gluten-free. I mean, if they want it to be gluten-free, they should say gluten-free. But, the reason they don't do that is because they don't want to be held liable for something to come in and test to see if their food is actually gluten-free.
Yeah.
Because it might not pass the 20 parts per million test. And so I understand. And so a lot A lot of places have what they call gluten friendly, and if you can get away with it, that might be a really good option. Usually it means they are trying to be gluten free, but they don't want to be held to that standard by any authority.
And Crust and Crumb, she should make gluten free stuff. She makes the most amazing stuff. You know who she is?
I know. I do.
She should be making it.
And then in restaurants and delis and things, there's a problem with cross-contamination. You can,
Yes.
this is in Texas. I was eating at a pizza place, and they said they had gluten-free pizza, but they were flinging it on the same counter
With the
that
same
they had put all the other flour and other crusts on. So just know that in a kitchen, it's busy. It might be cross-contaminated, and you might have to understand that if you don't feel really well afterwards, it might be that.
Yeah.
Now, he said don't cross-examine the waiter, and that's really good advice. But if you can get the chef out, and you might be able to, you could actually probably get better information and cooperation, perhaps. But you don't want to be a pain.
You got to have a Karen haircut. That short haircut women have, it's like big poofy hair, short in the back. They're always, I need to see the manager. It's the I need to see the manager haircut. And she'll say stuff like this, like, I'm going to need to see the manager.
No, we don't want to be that person. We don't want to be that person. We don't want to give everybody that's trying to eat healthy a bad name. But we need to stand up for ourselves and educate to some extent. Yeah.
I have Crohn's, and if I get a little bit of weed, I'm going to go mess up your bathroom. That's what I'd be saying.
Do you have 911 on speed dial? I have an allergy. So we also need to talk about cross reactions.
Yes. What is a cross reaction?
What is a cross reaction?
Yes.
That is when your immune system is messed up, which if you're listening excitedly to this conversation, it already is. No
If
doubt.
you're an American.
If you're an American.
American!
If you have problems, it's messed up.
Mm-hmm.
And it misidentifies certain foods that have no gluten in them as problems. And
Like a doppelganger almost.
yeah.
Yeah.
The
So-
immune system can't tell the difference.
So imagine like Matt Damon. No. Brad Pitt. Imagine Brad Pitt is wheat, and then I am a cross reaction like, say, oats, right? So someone is like, oh my God, is that Brad Pitt? And then the immune system mistakes me for Brad Pitt and has a reaction.
But as you're so fond of saying, they're drunk and they don't have their glasses on. So,
That's right. They've had too many martinis.
so your immune system, because of sugar, stress, and chemicals, has difficulty identifying these proteins correctly.
Yeah.
And so it can identify, especially the casein in dairy and the gliadin in wheat. They're very, very close.
Yeah, gliadin and like pretty much every part of like wheat and gliadin, every part of like dairy are the most allergenic. So even if it's all negative, still don't
eat
do
that
it.
stuff. And
But what are the other most common?
they are oats, like we've been talking about, millet, corn, potatoes, instant coffee. Don't eat.
Ooh, instant is the worst.
Don't do instant coffee. Nobody needs that. You all are rich enough to afford real coffee. You also have time. And while we're talking about coffee, what's another horrible thing people do to coffee? Well, there's a lot.
Heat
of
up plastic.
They use Keurigs or K-cups. And
Or
think
the
about it.
Mr. Coffee.
You're putting all that hot water right through that little thin plastic.
Yeah.
It's really, really bad. We've just gotten too used to convenience, and
Yep.
I do pour over coffee. It's just as fast.
Mm-hmm. What about a Vietnamese pour over? Have you done that before?
I have not done a Vietnamese.
But you have to get like a.
You have to go to Vietnam.
Well, they used to have the place over by. Now they got a great Thai place over by Best Buy, but the Vietnamese coffee place was there too.
So how's it different?
Well, you have like a really thick cream, so you'd have to get like coconut cream.
Oh, yeah.
And then you have the coffee pour over so it drips into the cream.
Oh,
It's really
we can do
good.
that at home.
Mm-hmm.
We can do that.
And you can go to lots of stores and get the ceramic pour overs, or French press, which is super easy, perfect.
And many of us do not do a lot of coffee, which is also a good thing.
Yeah.
Tea's really better for you.
So what are the other ones?
Yeast.
Yeast, like yeast infections.
Well, like the yeast in your bread,
Oh.
and like the yeast in your beer.
Beer.
Oh, by the way, beer has gluten in it. No beer, unless it's gluten-free beer.
Brewer's yeast and baker's yeast.
Right. So that's a double whammy because if you're eating gluten-free bread, it has yeast in it. So.
Yeah. So I mean, people that do gluten-free bread, they end up with the same problem.
I mean,
it's
okay.
the same nonsense.
I have been known to eat gluten-free bread,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a once in a while thing. It's not a daily thing. It's a once a month thing or once every couple months thing.
You know, I'm perfect, so I don't ever.
Well, for the rest of us. And rice. Rice is cross-reactive. So basically, if you're really, really having problems, my advice to you would be to go grain-free.
Yeah, grain-free.
Grain-free.
Healthy, grain-free.
Healthy, grain-free.
Yeah.
Well, and if you're, okay, so like you got a plate, right? And if you take out the half that you're normally eating grain, what are you going to eat? Well, if you follow Dr. G's advice and my advice, you're going to eat a moderate amount of meat, or some people do not eat meat.
Yeah.
I eat meat. So we eat healthy meat, high quality meat, and we eat a little bit, or an adequate amount.
Yeah.
And if you can eat other sources of protein, that's awesome, eggs, whatever. Some of us can't do that. But you're taking that whole half of the side that you might have been eating in grains, and you're going to fill up with something, and hopefully you're filling it up with nutrient-dense, colorful vegetables and fruits.
So you can heal faster, not have achy knees, backs, headaches, all that kind of stuff.
And you avoid aging. Who wants to look old and pruny before they have to?
That's why people can't tell that I'm like 62 years old.
82?
82. 82 years old. I forgot that birthday.
So, yeah, so it's dairy, oats, millet, corn, potatoes, instant coffee, yeast, and rice. And
Well, so then this is the frustrating part though, because then if we say, well, what are the best choices to replace? So your best effort to replace gluten-free grains, or say grains instead of. So we want to replace it with grasses, but some of those grasses are some of the ones that are cross-reactive.
Right.
They won't always cause a problem, but if there still is a problem,
your
suspect
safest
it.
ones would be buckwheat,
Buckwheat, yeah.
which, you know, people have made pancakes out of that by their own choice for years.
The first I dated this girl, like 20 years ago, she made me like, oh, she's super healthy, right? And I was not back then. And she made buckwheat pancakes, and I was like, I'm gonna break up with this person. Like, this are the worst things I've ever had in my life. And then
Maybe
now
she
it's
just couldn't cook.
now it's just normal.
Wow.
Now it's normal. you know?
Amaranth,
Amaranth.
quinoa is an option.
Quinoa, yeah.
Rice,
Yeah.
and it's more healthy. There's purple rice, forbidden rice, brown rice, red rice, and all those taste really good, especially
Really good.
the dark ones, and the brown or red rice. It's very nutty tasting.
Did you see I made a tikka masala with black rice in the middle? Did you see that?
And if you're a K-State fan, it turns purple when you cook it, so you can have K-State party.
Then it's gonna lose its football game or something. I don't know if that's true or not.
Millet is an option. I think it's actually one of the most cross-reactive ones. But wild rice is farther removed. It's a grass, but it's farther removed from other grains than some others. So.
Like wild rice though, so that didn't fit in our cross-reactive ones.
No, it doesn't. It's farther removed from the. It's not really a rice. It's a grass.
So a wild rice, like pecan stuffing kind of thing, like would be great. There's really great stuff you can do with the wild rice.
But we just told people to go grain-free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These are grasses though.
So are all the grains.
Oh, damn it.
So
Okay, then what about nut flowers? They're not
flowers
grains
are good
or
if you
grasses.
can have nuts. This is where it's really helpful to have had your IgG food sensitivities done, because not to be a Debbie Downer, but nuts often are a problem for people that have gut problems.
Yeah.
Not because the nuts are fibrous and irritating, but because the proteins of the nuts. We usually can pick out if someone comes in here with zillion and one issues, which most people do. We know that it's grains, dairy, and nuts that are going to be problematic for them.
Can you see that?
Usually
Where the hell's the nuts? Oh, there's the
up
nuts
at the
right
top.
there. Yeah. So you can see they have quite a few
But-
on that one too.
If you can have nuts, almond flour, of course, is ubiquitous. Although most people are sensitive to almonds,
Yeah.
actually.
We made almond flour crackers at a food demo at Natural Grocers once. Remember that?
Yeah,
And brown rice crackers.
we did. We made all kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know if any of you.
Cassava. I didn't put cassava on here.
It's here. We haven't got there yet. So, what can we do if we're not going to eat the gluten-free grains?
Yes.
Some healthier options, and our paleo friends are aware of these, would be root flours like cassava, which is kind of like tapioca, only it's not as refined.
And it doesn't mess up your blood sugar.
Right, but going back to a better choice if you're going to do nut flours would be to grind up pecans. Pecans are typically less reactive than either walnuts or almonds. That's just the
Or cashews.
or even cashews. But the problem is they just aren't already ground for you in a package at Dillon's. So, but you can, if you have a blender or a food processor, you can do it yourself.
Yeah. My friends made with their on Thanksgiving. We made white bean pancakes,
Oh yes, and beans.
and they ground it with their KitchenAid attachment. They just poured the dried beans in there and made flour, and then they made pancakes out of it.
Yeah, you can find
It tasted great.
bean
Bean
muffins and things at the farmers
Yeah.
markets, and
Yeah. They made biscotti with cassava flour. Tasted awesome.
yeah,
Had a little
I've been doing
cranberries in it. Super good.
I've been doing some baking with the
Oh,
cassava.
yeah,
It's
not,
good.
not sharing, Howard. Not sharing with anybody.
So experiment with a cassava flour. Otto's is a really good brand.
Otto.
Otto.
All right, so for the last thing before we finish up here, patients always ask about ancient grains that aren't the one that's the most modified. So especially like emmer and einkorn
And spelt.
and spelt. So what do you think about those?
I think that if you already have a problem, you should leave them alone.
Yeah.
If you have a grandchild or a child and they don't have problems, if you start them from the beginning eating whole grains like that in moderation,
Yeah.
not teaching them to depend on those for every meal,
Yeah.
I think those would be good choices.
Nice.
But for those of us that are trying to heal our guts, they're not going to help us.
Yep.
And in fact, they do contain gluten. So
Yeah, so they don't have the same genetic modification of the
but they have gliadin.
yeah, but they still have those things. So
Yeah.
so in the beginning, I mean, with everything, again, if it's chronic, it's something you're chronically doing. It's eat, drink, breathe, rubbing your skin, how you stress. It's always cause. So then it's hard to figure out if people just say, well, I'm going to get rid of wheat, but I'm going to add this other grain that might be a problem. It's best just to clear all the muddy water and then feel really good. And once you feel sustained, like really good, you can think clearly, you can pee, you can poop, you can have enough energy all day, crazy normal kind of like lifestyle. Then try emmer. And you'll know. Once you feel good, you will know if you can or cannot
And
do
we're
those
not
things.
talking about a 2-week trial,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
several months.
Like an OJ trial, like 6 months. So yeah, so you want to do a provocative test, but not anyway. You just want to feel good. Feel good, love it. It's very frustrating because all the
Do
food
that.
changes, but it's well worth it. So as we wrap things up, we're going to talk a little bit, I think we'll talk about MSG next time.
Okay.
Monosodium glutamate,
And
which
it's
is
50 other names.
the gangster of food additives that can mess people up big time, but they hide it in a lot of stuff. And then we'll also talk a little bit about kind of New Year's resolutions after that. So last year, me and what's her face, H2, Holly, the boss, we did the unresolution talk. So we talked a lot about all these, like why they fail all the time. And most, I think it's like 85% fail within the first 6 months because you have not changed as a person, right? And a lot of that comes from knowing a lot of stuff, how to change. But Sherry and I were launching the reboot, and so we'll talk about the reboot 2020. But we kind of want to do it basically don't do what everybody else is doing. Is waiting for everybody to start coming down off their resolution
I tried really hard to do it myself, but I fell off of my resolution wagon.
Yep. And then once they figured out, okay, I'm not a different person, suddenly the next day, now how do we actually get healthy, right? So then if our goal is summer, what does healthy by summer look like, you know? So we'll start talking about the Reboot 2020 program, and then we'll talk about MSG next time also.
And I don't know how much you've talked before about it, but the reboot is really nice because you'll be in community, and
Yes.
change occurs in community. It doesn't occur very well on your own. As we all know, it's easier and better and happier if we do it together.
Accountability buddies.
Yeah.
Yep.
And not just accountable, but we actually change. We rewire our brain more efficiently in community.
That's right.
So.
Well, like Click and Lack says, you've wasted another hour of your time. Thank you guys for being a part of this. And again, there's a lot of caveats and questions that you probably have for our topic the last 2 weeks. Feel free to keep posting those. We'll try to get them all answered online for you. And for you, for those of you that watch this offline or later, when it's not live, definitely post your questions and comments. Love to hear your feedback. And then our website too, we got our website up finally. But it's nourishpurifyandheal.com.
Actually, it's nourishpurifyheal, all one word, .com.
So that all one word at the end?
No.
Okay, yeah, no spaces.
There's no and.
No end. Oh, nourishpurifyheal.com.
Right.
Yeah, all right. Or drgarrett.tv goes to the same place. Do you know that?
Yes.
Yeah, all right. So that's a great one where you can kind of look up stuff too. And I know a lot of people, I mean, we have people that refer in for the food testing. We do have a deal.
We have a deal.
Is it till the end of the month? I think
Yes, it's till the end of the month.
till the end of the month. So
Save $50.
$50 off your food sensitivity testing. So that's a really good deal. We already charged the lowest, but we're giving an even better deal too,
And
because it's such a powerful way to figure out what's going on.
It is. And if you happen to be one of those who has tested before and it's been 9 months or so and you'd like to retest to find out if you can, you know, your body's healing and your immune system's healing and it's not recognizing some of those foods anymore as problems,
Yep.
now would be a really great time to
test.
And you can come by and pick up a kit from either me and Newton or Dr. Garrett here, or you can probably send you one for a price.
For a price.
For a price, it's all
For $50.
no.
Yeah, and we do have a finger stick one, but I don't like that one at all. But
I don't
if you have
think
like a
it's-
little kid, that might be the best option, because again, some will not do the blood draw. So it at least gives an idea of direction for us to get like little kids a lot better faster too. Well, thank you guys. I really appreciate you guys spending time with us and interacting. So have questions, let us know. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. Same time, same channel.
Yep.
All
So
right.
be well.
Be well. Bye, you guys.
Bye.